Good evening, again.
Good evening.
Thank you. So I've packed the children off to bed so we're not disturbed when we discuss Last of the Time Lords. And as I intimated in the last video, the way that this episode opens after the absolute insanity of the sound of drums, the swinging from ridiculousness that we shouldn't be enjoying but we really, really are, to the sort of action-packed, frenetic thriller. And it starts, this one, like it's some dystopian, flipping Hunger Gamesian, Martha coming in off the boat with Miranda's boyfriend there, waving a torch. And it's a really good trick, and it's one that Doctor Who's going to play more and more, and I really appreciate it, I really do. It's a very Moffat-y thing to do, I think. But then I'd forgotten that we're straight back into the melee, because, and this is a Doctor Who moment that's a top 5 Doctor Who moment for me, genuinely, is the bit where you get the exterior shot of the Valiant and the Master saying he's going to enter playing track 4 or whatever it is, and the bloody Scissor Sisters, I Can't Decide plays, and that song, which I'd never heard the first time round, but both me and Lib, we were reminiscing about that moment, and just you sit there and go, mouth agog, and it's so bizarre because that moment's not out of the realms of Doctor Who. Doctor Who does things like that. Something as ridiculous and camp. Obviously, Doctor Who does stuff like that. We've seen it recently with flipping Devil's Cord, where they're dancing at the end. There's the big song at the end, isn't there? And, in that context, it's explained away. And in this context, it's explained away. But there is something about the Master who has filled up the screen. Are you having a good think there?
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's different to the Devil's Cord, because the music in that was like incidental music that he's singing to, like he's got the radio on,
yes,
singing to it or whatever.
But
in the Devil's Cord, it's very much part of the story, which I do not like. In
the Devil's Cord?
Correct.
But I think, yes, I agree. But there's something very grandiose and nonsensical and ridiculous about this. And I think it's the Master that allows that to happen. In the same way that the Daleks can warp the narrative of Doctor Who, stealing that from Sandifer, always cite your sources. And Doctor Who itself warps the narrative of the stories that Doctor Who, as a concept, drops into. This Master in particular is able to sort of play with the concept of what's going on. So, even that scene in Downing Street where he just completely subverts expectations of what the Master will do in his first day as Prime Minister. Anyway, thank you. The Last of the Time Lords, rather than being a thriller, is this dystopian trudge, quite honestly. And if there is a critique of this story to be had, it's that it's all a bit of a shaggy dog story up until the point where Martha ends upon the Valiant. You could argue it doesn't need the extra running time of how many more minutes it gets, 6-7 minutes, because really, honestly, it's a lot of set pieces leading to that moment. Now, it just so happens that I love all the set pieces leading to that moment. I really appreciate the opening of the Toclophane to see the face inside. I've not got the Toclophane. I find that we've got a toy. Winnie had a toy for years that we called the Toclophane. Of course, it's not a Toclophane. You wouldn't give a child a Toclophane. It's horrible. But it is. It's a little dome. Yeah. It is a little sphere with a face inside. Anyway, that was the Toclophane in our house. But I love that moment. Absolutely brilliant. The conceit that the Master has used humanity to attack humanity. I love all of that. Well, as Libya said, I referred to it as, I'm not sure I'm using Deus Ex Machina the right way, but certainly the big red button isms of RTD are used to their best in this story, because the paradox engine is it called a paradox engine? That's a magic card. I can't remember now. Very good magic card. But that is central to the plot. So the fact that all Jack has to do is destroy that in order to reverse things, that works beautifully well. But my point is this: the whole of the story, to me, is just moments leading up to that moment. But within that, you get so much good stuff. You get the sort of resolution of the Martha character. Now, there are elements in this house that do not believe in the Martha character. I do. And I think that this story just cements it. Because you've got that moment in Sound of Drums where she basically just rips into the doctor. This is your fault. And she's furious at the doctor. It's his fault that her family are in trouble now. She never knew she was signed up to this. He's never taken her aside and given her the sorts of conversations given to Rose. Not treated her with enough respect to do that. So
yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't care enough about her to say all that sort of
Yeah.
preamble about how, you don't want to come.
This
with
is
me.
dangerous, but I will look after you, or I'll make sure Jackie, or whoever, whoever's okay. But then she goes off for a year. Now, let's not forget this. She goes off for a year and saves the day. And she saves the day in the most epically brilliant Doctor Who way, which is telling stories. Now, I genuinely think that is a masterpiece of concept, because with all the talk of the Archangel Network and all this kind of thing, and we'll talk about what happens to the Doctor in a second, I think the fact that RTD tasks this companion who the programme sets up to fail, but succeeds anyway, in my eyes at least, by having her go round and tell stories, I just think is absolutely magnificent. And I think that the way that Martha exits this series saves the character, quite frankly. And I do have some issues with Freema's performance. I think the fact that she is able, or is the only companion, as I said at some point, to go into Torchwood and to the Sarah Jane Adventures, which were the polar opposites at the time of Doctor Who, the extremes of what Doctor Who could be, and yet can exist in both of them, and does that, I think, because, without wishing to be cruel, she's a bland enough character to deal with it, and I feel really bad saying that as an indictment of the character, but in this, contained within this, the story of Martha, for me, by the way, there's a book called The Story of Martha, which I'm determined to read next. Oh, I'm reading an audiobook anyway. I think it's class. And I really, really think that works. I think the family works. I think the moments when they try and get the master... What's Martha's mom called? Cynthia? Francine. I think you've dissed her, but I think her performance is brilliant in this story. I thought she was really, really, really good. Yeah. You did. I've got evidence.
I don't think so. I think you imagined.
Right. But anyway, I love all of that. Tish, I think, is great. But yeah, all of that. I think Jack is stand-up brilliant in this. I mean, bringing Jack back into this helps the story have the fighty. It helps ramp up the tension. Does a very similar job to when he came in Passing of the Ways. But it really hangs together. And I really think, I mean, John Barrowman is much talked about now. This is something that we have to deal with as fans of anything, quite frankly, when the people making the programme are shown to have behaved in a way that doesn't quite hold up to the expectations that society, and indeed we, should hold them to. But I'll level with you, I like John Barrowman, and I think that whatever mistakes he has made on set shouldn't hold us back from appreciating the fact that his interpretation of Jack is stand-up brilliant, and Barrowman's great in this. Yes?
He is.
And he's the face of Bo. You should have seen Winnie's face. Libby and I stopped watching the programme, and both of us just watched Winnie, and honestly, she was so delighted. Winnie was not delighted, however, when the Master died. She wept. She absolutely wept. And I think that is a testament to, well, honestly, mostly to John Sim, if I'm perfectly frank, because even though he's an absolute monster, he is so likeable as the Master. You cannot help but enjoy his performance all the way through this story. He is just great. And when you know John Sim as an actor and the other characters he's played, to see him in Doctor Who was quite the shock. To this point in his career, John Sim had very, very much been in the Christopher Eccleston mould, a very serious actor who did serious television programmes. The most unserious thing he'd ever done was Life of Mars, and he left that after 2 seasons. A programme that's very good, by the way. You should watch that if you've not seen it.
We've seen it.
I'm talking to them, not you. I watched it with you. If I have a critique that I think holds this episode back from being as good as the previous one, it's the way the Doctor's handled in this episode. Because you've got David Tennant, who is now established as one of the, right now, within the context of the program, established as one of the absolute archetype of Doctor. This is the, in my humble opinion, the third golden age of Doctor Who, after Dalek Mania, the early Tom Baker years, and this. And Tennant was everywhere. Tennant was massive at this point. And you get your season closer, and I get the theory, you basically take Tennant out of it. Yes, the Doctor's there, but the aged makeup, which looks very good, by the way, at least the first lot, looks very, very good. I think it looks good. But I think it robs the character of some of its power, right? You even have him not talk for very justifiable reasons, but if you've sort of reduced his physicality, then taking away his voice seems a double whammy. And I get the point. Take this Doctor out of the story. But he's still there just a bit. And then when you have Dobby Doctor, I mean, what's that about? I mean, it was too close to Harry Potter to not make that comparison. And it just...
It's actually funny because this time I didn't think it. I didn't think, oh, he looks like Dobby, but I remember at the time...
Dobby Doctor.
It was just like...
And it just...
I'd forgotten about Dobby. Oh my God, I've forgotten about Dobby.
Good. It just feels a bit laughable, to be honest. What I would have done, and flipping out, I'm an idiot librarian from Sheffield, what do I know? But what I would have done is I would have taken Tennant as a visible presence out of the story and had him as some sort of voice remaining. So you can't see him, but the Master could still converse with him. That's what I would have done. Because I still think you need him there to converse with the Master. Because that's the only way you get certain emotions and whatnot out of the Master, having that ability to talk. But there's just too much of one and not enough of the other. I'm not entirely sure quite if the balance is right. I get the point. Look, I'm nitpicking now. I'm going to nitpick one more time as well. I'm going to say this. I struggle. I'm an atheist, okay? I'm an atheist, but I live...
I'm not.
And that's great, we're all different. I'm an atheist, and I live in a society that is culturally Christian, or at least has been for the majority of my life. I'm not entirely sure that's the case anymore, especially not in the place that I live now. I think there's much more of a balance, much more of a mix. But I struggle with art, not fine art, but entertainment, dabbling in Christian iconography. Because whilst I do not believe, I have respect for all faiths, and I think that we all should. This is too Christ-like for me. I don't think you can watch this and not think that it's Christ-like. And it bothers me.
I didn't think it was.
Oh, I just think that whole resurrection-y type thing. I think prayer is overtly mentioned, the word prayer. The evocation of his name. RTD dabbles with this. Don't forget in Gridgelot we had a hymn, a proper full-on hymn. So the precedent is set, but I just feel awkward about it. It's not my thing to feel awkward about, quite frankly. But I just think some images and ideas, and this is purely my opinion, you have yours. I think some images and ideas are too precious is the wrong word. I don't know what the right word is. I just think going there is problematic. And it makes me feel awkward. And as I said, I'm an atheist, so there we go. Yeah. The Doctor isn't, is he? The more...
You just start to think that he is.
And that is a very fair point, actually. That's a very fair point. Livy's very proud of herself now. Yeah, this is the story we're telling, isn't it? That's something to ponder on. Something to ponder on. Right, next thing, just a quick one. This episode's got my favourite music in any of New Who. Livy's not responding. Respond.
I don't know how to respond to that.
Okay, that'll do. I love the bit with the Doctor when he goes from old Doctor to Dobby Doctor. There's some unusual Murray Gold orchestra music there that I wish I'd heard more of. I think that's great. And honestly, Martha's theme, I think, is the best bit of music that Murray Gold's ever written. I just think it's a really beautiful thing that when it drops, is very Martha. And I can't think of it. I suppose there's I know the Donna. Dun, 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 dun. That's Donna's theme. But Martha's theme just sticks in your head. And it works. Du, 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 du. It's really pretty. Anyway, there we go. So, listen, that's the end of this two-parter, and the master is gone and dead. Poor old Winnie, who was absolutely in bits. She'll learn. She'll learn. Right, it's the end of this season. Let's go through, as we often do at the end of a season, and do a little bit of an assessment. So, Smith and Jones, good. Yeah, good.
I can't remember them once I watched them.
Okay, well, it was good. Then we had the Shakespeare Code, which is all right.
Smith and Jones was the one that went to the moon.
Yeah.
No, not good.
Okay. Shakespeare Code.
I like that.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Gridlock, absolute.
You love that.
I do. I love it. I think it's a class Doctor Who episode, and it makes me happy, weirdly, in ways that I can't really truly explain. Absolutely brilliant. That's fine. I don't care. Victory of the Daleks, absolute flat as a pancake disappointment, and it's a Dalek story. It's the Dalek story. No Daleks in the finale, so that was the Dalek moment. Bobbins, what a disappointment. The Lazarus thing.
Wank.
Nice how it ties back here, but yeah, poor. 42, liked 42. On the ship, the sun, Michelle Collins floating through space. I like 42. And then, what the chuff happens to this season after that? You get Human Nature, Family of Blood, probably the best thing we've watched out of New Who, certainly so far. Then you follow it with Blink. What? Then you get flipping Utopia, which leads us straight into this pair. I mean, what an upswing of quality that is. That's just insane. And it does make you wonder what was going on with some of those other stories. How do, you can imagine a clunker slips through the net, but my gosh. Whew, dear me. Anyway, there we go. That's that then. So, how's the Doctor? Well, he's all right, isn't he?
Hot.
Hot. Oh, one more thing to do. See you in a moment.